Welcome to One Church Ripon Campus. For more information, including upcoming events, how to get plugged in, and details on how to give, visit our website at www.visitonechurch.com/Ripon. You can also find us on social media.
How's everybody doing this morning? It's a dangerous game crying with contact lenses in. You just never know. I can still read the clock with that eye and with that eye, so we're good. They're both still there. Man, what a sweet time in the presence of the Lord. That's a gift for us. And man, thanks to the worship team who every single week lead us into a time of worship. Their hearts are always positioned and they're always ready to give of themselves. And as a church, we're grateful for you guys, worship team. Thank you for your time and your effort. All right, we are continuing our series this morning called Learning from the Giants. And I'm excited about this series. I just love leadership stuff, and I think this has just been a great series. The report is from all other campuses that this has been a very impactful series for their campuses as well. This is one of those series where we kind of all are on the same page on. So every campus is getting some version of learning from the Giants from week to week, and so that's pretty cool. This week, I drew the short straw, and so we will be preaching on Job. See the excitement there? By the way, how do you spell job? J-O-B. How do you spell Job? J-O-B. I don't know who determines on when it becomes Job and when it becomes job, but I just, as I was writing this sermon this week, thought that to myself. I've read Job like 10 times, and I'm like, oh yeah, Job. My own issue. All right, today we're talking about Job. And I think this, whenever you preach on Job, the pastor always has the responsibility to start out a little bit lighthearted. Because when you begin to dive into Job and the story of Job and the life of Job, things get real fast for that dude. And so I just wanted us to take, in the spirit of lightheartedness, I just want us to take a look at a movie clip from one of my favorite movies ever, a scene where David Spade is getting Jobbed in this scene from Tommy Boy.
That guy might not call us.
Can't believe he called me a psycho.
Hey, were you in there just now? You are a psycho. Good God. And comb your hair.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say you did much better. Thought you were so cool. Watch and learn, he says. Well, I was watching. Know what I saw?
It's a lie! I think you tried to bite me! Oh, man!
No way that just happened. My car is completely destroyed.
I swear I've seen a lot of stuff in my life, but that was awesome. But sorry about your car, man.
Such a classic scene right there. No way that just happened. A lot of us may have a response like that in life, like, no way that just happened. We all feel probably at some point in our life like we've been a little bit Jobbed on some level at some point in our lives. Perhaps you feel like maybe you're being in a season of being Jobbed right now as we speak. For some of us, in fact, getting Jobbed may be defined as like binge watching your favorite Netflix series or whatever, and then boom, all of a sudden the internet's out, and you're like, why? Tearing clothes and ashes on your head and all that Old Testament stuff. For others, getting Jobbed is more like when you come down with the flu and you're throwing up all over the place, only to realize that also the rest of your kids all have the flu, and they're throwing up all over the place, and then you have the responsibility of cleaning up your own mess and then cleaning up all of everybody else's mess, all while having the flu. Why, Job? I've been Jobbed. And for others, you might be in a season of life where you've just walked out of a very, very tough time, or maybe you're still in the middle of a tough time, and like being Job is not really a laughing matter to you. You feel like your whole world is coming down on you. Well, wherever you find yourself this morning, I think that we can all learn a lot from the guy who started the whole Job movement. So I want us to dive into the story about the man himself, Job. And I'm going to invite my incredibly beautiful wife up to come read some scripture to us. And the scripture reference will be on the side screens, and so you can follow along as she comes up and reads.
All right, go with me to the Old Testament. Job chapter 1, we're going to start at the beginning and kind of tell Job's story. Job chapter 1, give you a second to get there. We'll start at verse 1. Here we go. There was once a man named Job who lived in the land of Uz. He was blameless, a man of complete integrity. He feared God and he stayed away from evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 teams of oxen, 500 female donkeys. He also had many servants, people that worked for him. He was, in fact, the richest person in that entire area. Verse 6. Well, one day, the members of the heavenly court, so now we're getting a glimpse of heaven, what's happening in heaven. One day, the members of the heavenly court came to present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser Satan came with them. Where have you come from? The Lord asked Satan. And Satan answered the Lord, I've been patrolling the earth, watching everything that's going on. And the Lord asked Satan, have you noticed my servant Job? He is the finest man in all the earth. He's blameless, a man of complete integrity. He fears God and he stays away from evil. And Satan replied to the Lord, yes, but Job has good reason to fear God. You've always put a wall of protection around him. You've always put a wall of protection around his home, around his property. You've made him prosper in everything he does. Look how rich he is. But if you reach out and take away everything he has, he will surely curse you to your face. All right, you may test him, the Lord said to Satan. Do whatever you want with everything he possesses, but don't harm him physically. So Satan left the Lord's presence. And one day, when Job's sons and daughters were feasting at the oldest brother's house, a messenger arrived at Job's home with this news. Job, your oxen were plowing with the donkeys feeding beside them. When the Sabaeans raided us, they stole all the animals and they killed all the farmhands. I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. Verse 16, while he was still speaking, another messenger arrived with this news. The fire of God has fallen from heaven and burned up your sheep and all your shepherds. I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. Verse 17, while he was still speaking, a third messenger arrived with this news. 3 bands of Chaldean raiders have stolen all your camels, they killed all your servants, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. Verse 18, while he was still speaking, yet another messenger arrived with this news. Your sons and daughters, they were feasting in their oldest brother's home, and suddenly a powerful wind swept in from the wilderness, and it hit the house on all sides. The house collapsed, and all of your children are dead. I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. Job stood up, he tore his robe in grief, and then he shaved his head and he fell to the ground to worship. And he said, I came naked from my mother's womb, and I will be naked when I leave from here. The Lord gave me what I have, and the Lord has taken it away. But blessed be the name of the Lord. In all of this, Job did not sin by blaming God. Turn to chapter 2. The story continues. We're going to start at verse 7. Satan now struck Job with terrible boils from head to foot. Job scraped his skin with a piece of broken pottery as he sat among the ashes. And his wife said to him, are you still trying to maintain your integrity? Curse God and die. But Job replied, you talk like a foolish woman. Should we accept only good things from the hand of God and never anything bad? So in all of this, Job said nothing wrong. Verse 11, when 3 of Job's friends heard of the tragedy that he had suffered, They got together and they traveled from their homes to comfort and console him. Their names were Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. When they saw Job from a distance, they scarcely recognized him. Wailing loudly, they tore their robes and they threw dust into the air over their heads to show their grief. Then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and nights. No one said a word to Job, for they saw that his suffering was too great for words. So here we have all that's happening in Job's life. Now I want to take us to the end of Job, Job chapter 42. And these chapters that we're now passing is this incredible conversation that Job has with the Lord, saying, Lord, where were you? What happened? Why is this happening to me? All of these why questions that we all ask during those same times of crisis. And the Lord begins to address them. The Lord begins to call things out for Job. But I want you to hear the resolve that Job lands on. Job chapter 42, we're going to start at verse 10. When Job prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes. In fact, the Lord gave him twice as much as before. Then all of his brothers, sisters, and his former friends came and feasted with him in his home, and they consoled him. They comforted him because of all the trials that the Lord had brought against him, and each of them brought him a gift of money and a gold ring. And so the Lord blessed, verse 12, the Lord blessed Job in the second half of his life even more than the first half. Now he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 teams of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. He also gave Job 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. In all the land, no women were as lovely as the daughters of Job. Verse 16, Job lived 140 years after that, living to see 4 generations of his children and grandchildren. And then he died, an old man who had lived a long, full life.
So there is the story of Job, the guy who had everything, then lost everything, and lost everyone. And I think there are some incredible insights. Thank you, by the way, for reading that. I know that was a lot of scripture. I chose her to read it because I didn't want to put everybody asleep by reading it myself. And so you're welcome. So I see you guys sleeping. Trust me, there are plenty of you out there. We talk about you in staff. All right, here are some insights that I think that we can learn from Job's life. So jumping right in this morning. First thing kind of stands out is Satan didn't see the bigger picture. Satan's thought process was, I'll take everything away from Job, and if I do that, then Job's response will be to turn his back on God and be gone. So Satan couldn't see the bigger picture. Job's wife didn't see the bigger picture. She thought that if he would get rid of his God, then he would also get rid of all of his sorrows, all of his suffering as well. And by the way, for the wives in the room, Job's wife might be a good example on a lot of ways on how not to respond to certain situations and circumstances. That's a freebie for you women. There you go. Job's friends didn't see the bigger picture. They, in their efforts, in their kind-hearted efforts, with all of the verbal barrage that they would give Job and all of their insights to the situation, like they ultimately ended up leaving Job feeling worse than before they had ever even arrived to throw their arm around him. And I think in a lot of ways, and a lot of times, if have somebody, a close friend of yours that's going through something, one of the best things that you can do is just kind of throw your arm around them. You don't got to say a whole lot and just kind of cry right alongside of him and ride that wave with them. And his friends all gathered up and thought they had some particular special insight, and it actually just kind of ended up bringing him down even more than he was. His friends couldn't see the bigger picture. Job himself didn't see the bigger picture. I'd imagine that probably the worst part for Job, remember Job is like the most righteous guy around, and he had been so blessed because he was so faithful in his relationship with the Lord. He was the most wealthy guy in the area, according to the scriptures. Probably the worst thing for Job was that he was feeling like everything that was happening to him, all this like horrific things that were happening to him, were so undeserved. Like, why, God, why? I've been so faithful to you. Why is this happening to me? But here's the thing. God did see the bigger picture. God knew every detail of Job's situation because God can see the inside of us. God can see, like, I'm not talking about like the heart and all the innards and stuff. I'm talking like God can see into your soul. He knows the character. He knows what you're made up of. He knows the grit that you have. He knows the actuality of a relationship with God versus like I'll tag into my faith every once in a while when it's convenient to my life. Like God knows the inside of us. He knew the inside of Job. He knew who Job was on the inside. And God could see that Job was far bigger and far badder on the inside than he was even on the outside. And I think that's important for us to realize as we learn some. I'm going to jump into some leadership lessons right now. I think it's important to realize who Job was on the inside, and then that will help us understand some leadership lessons. So let's jump right into the leadership principles that we can learn. Some principles that we see Job applying in his life through this most difficult season of his life, probably one of the more difficult seasons of life that's recorded in human history, of losing absolutely everything. So the first leadership principle is this: good leaders don't allow their emotions to dictate their decisions. Yeah. That's kind of a mature like leadership law right there. Good leaders don't allow their emotions to dictate their decisions. A good leader will always do what's right and then hope afterwards that you begin to feel good about it. Job didn't like carelessly do what felt good, felt right in the moment, and then hope that it would all work out to be the right decision at the end of it. It's only a matter of time for all of us before life gets real tough, before life throws a curveball at you, before something happens that's out of your control. Job sets an incredible example here in Scripture on how to be a strong leader despite your emotional state, despite how you feel about something. I think it's so important, and I think it's so human nature so often to react to something. I think a good leader is not going to emotionally react to a situation. A good leader is going to be able to assess a situation and be able to determine what honors God the most and what's going to help others and help yourself along the way. The second lesson that we learn from Job's life is this: that good leaders know that outside reputation should never be greater than inside character. Reputation, no matter good or bad, reputation is like a shadow. It's like a shadow. It has no substance to it whatsoever. It's just a reflection of something. Let that sink in for a minute. Like your reputation, good or bad, it really has, there's nothing to it. God knew that Job would remain faithful even when he was tested, especially when he was tested. This is, I think, a great lesson for you and me. In order for us to maintain or remain being faithful to God, even during the toughest, even during the most overwhelming times, we must keep growing on the inside. We must become warriors on the inside. Job's reputation was that he was the wealthiest guy around, that he was the most righteous guy around. Like his reputation was great, but in the end, after everything was said and done, he didn't let all that he had, all the blessings that he had, he didn't let any of those things define him. So that when turmoil hit, when trouble hit, he was still the same person that he was, that warranted the blessing and the favor of God is in his life. Reputation is important, but character is more important. Reputation should be a reflection of your character. It should be dictated by your character. Your reputation should take orders from your character. It shouldn't be the other way around. Like Job, I believe that we all should spend our time and our energy growing from within, growing in these things, making a foundation of these things, growing inside in faith, in gratitude. Man, gratitude's a big one. In patience. If you have little kids or you're around little kids, or basically, honestly, if you just breathe air, you get a daily opportunity to exercise patience. Love. It's super easy. I say this all the time. It's so easy to love all of you lovable people. It's a real challenge when somebody's not so lovable, but we're still, as believers, required to love them. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Joy. I think joy is one of the most underrated spiritual weapons that you could have. As a believer, man, we have every reason in the world to be joyful, joy-filled, because we know that no matter what happens to me, no matter what my circumstances may be, that joy comes in the morning, that Jesus still paid the price for my sins, and no matter what happens, nothing can separate me from my Heavenly Father. There's reason for joy more than any other thing on earth because of that right there as believers. And when you are joyful, when you choose joy, even in tough circumstances, the rest of the world is looking in going, whatever they have, I need. Joy is a powerful tool as believers. Learn to be joyful in all circumstance. And let these things become a foundation of our life. Faith, gratitude, patience, joy, love, all these things. The fruits of the Spirit, let those be the foundation of our life. Because if you want to be great in God's eyes, if you want God to look down and say, okay, this person from the inside out is a mighty warrior, then we need to make strong character our greatest goal. Strong character. Make that our greatest goal. My reputation should never be greater than my character. The third leadership lesson that we learned from Job is this. A good leader's faith in God is stronger than his vision. A good leader's faith in God and a good God is stronger than what you can just see or feel in front of you. And maybe you can relate with Job on this. I know that a lot of times in my life I can certainly relate with Job on this because Job could see no hope. He could see no future and no end to his suffering. He lost everything and everyone. That's what was in front of him. That's what he could see. That's what he could feel in front of him. But he kept his focus on God. He kept rooted in his faith that God is a good God. The promise, the hope that you and I have as believers in Christ, man, when we look at the size of our problem and we look at the size of our God, this is certain. Our strength comes from knowing that my God is bigger and badder than my problems. Yes, amen is right. Our God is bigger than our problems. And that's truth. God is bigger than the devil. He's got more power than the devil. Whatever the devil throws at you, God has a greater plan and he can squash out the enemy just like that. Be assured that God always has a future, that God always has a plan for your life, a good plan, a plan that will benefit you and others all around you. God is a good God. The fourth leadership lesson is this. A good leader's attitude is better than their circumstances. All right, so this is like big boy stuff here. Big boy and big girl stuff. A good leader's attitude is better than their circumstances. Any single one of us can have a good attitude during good times. Like Christmas morning, yay, I've got a great attitude. But of course, we've all seen or been the kid that didn't get what they wanted for Christmas and their attitude for their gift immediately changed. Man, a good leader has a good attitude no matter what the circumstances, no matter what the Christmas present is. The real test is, can you have a good attitude during adversity? Can you maintain your attitude during adversity? Can you remain positive and faithful to God and hopeful in God when the circumstances are just completely stacked against you and completely overwhelming you? Because the reality is this. We have little to no control over our circumstances. We have little to no control on the things that will happen to us. Sure, I can kind of control what I'm going to go eat for lunch later. As long as it's a McDonald's Happy Meal, according to my kids, I can control that, right? But we can't control, like, the doctor report that we get. There are things that we just have no control over in our life. Things happen. Bad things happen. Bad things happen to people, good faith-filled people like Job. Bad things happen to people like you and me. But one thing that we can always have complete control over is our attitude. That's 100% us. We control that. Nobody else can tell you you're going to have a good attitude, and all of a sudden you'll just have a good attitude. No, you choose to have a good attitude. No one can say, hey, right now you're starting a bad attitude, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, no, yeah, I am starting a bad attitude. Like no one else, you control that, not anybody else. Every single day we choose our attitudes, in the bad times and in the good times. We have the opportunity to choose to rely and trust God rather than ourselves or the circumstances. When you choose to rely on God, your attitude is the posture of the joy, of like things aren't all gloom and doom. Your attitude is a posture of hope. Your attitude is a posture of restoration. Your attitude is just simply a posture of no matter how bad it gets, like I know God's in complete control, but that requires trust in God. That requires us to release a little bit of control, I think. I think it requires us to release a little bit of like, well, if I were to draw it up this way, this is how the process would be. And Lord, if I really would what would help me have a good attitude is like a good bank account. Like that would help things. It would help my relationship with my wife and all those other things. Like we just have to trust God. Maybe your bank account's never going to be at a level that all of a sudden you would be nice to your spouse. Maybe that's just not ever going to happen, but you can still choose to have a good attitude regardless of the circumstances. Choose God and become bigger on the inside rather than the outside. Choose God. Choose a good God. I'm just invite the band up and our prayer team up as I'm getting ready to wrap up. And as our prayer team comes forward, I just want to every week mention that, man, these prayer warriors are here for you. They're here to pray with you. If you have any situations in life that you would like prayer for, it doesn't have to be catastrophic. It can be for a job interview. It can be for just wisdom. It can be help me raise my kids. It can be for anything. These guys are committed to praying for the people and the needs of our church. And I am grateful for them. I know that they cover the pastors and the staff of this church in prayer, and I know that they're here to pray with you guys. So please take advantage of our team. Please take advantage of prayer, because prayer motivates God's hand to move it on our behalf and in our favor. So come get prayer. I'm going to ask everybody just to stand to their feet. As we're wrapping up this morning, I know we've talked like the leadership side of things and those sort of things, and those are incredible principles. And as you use those to honor God, man, the Lord will have favor and He will bless your life. My hope this morning is that we begin to realize that despite your situation, despite your reputation, whatever that may be, despite what those around you are saying to you or about you or discouraging you with, that you can put your trust in God. God sees the details. He knows your circumstances. He's not shocked by anything you've done or anything that's been done to you. He's not shocked by any loss. He feels pain. He catches every tear. You can trust God. I hope you realize this morning that God is a good God. That God has a specific and a special plan for your life. It doesn't mean that it's going to be free from pain or trials. In fact, Jesus teaches us the opposite, that we will have trials in our life. But that doesn't mean that God's plan for you isn't good. That doesn't mean that God's plan for you isn't for you to be used in a miraculous way, in a divine way, to point your life and others' lives towards Him, towards the hope of Christ. God has a good plan for your life. If we can learn to trust in Him, if we can learn to grow in faith from the inside out, if we can learn to develop our godly character, our godly wisdom, our godly perspective, if we can just choose the attitude of, my God is a good God, my God is a trustworthy God, man, the power of God will overflow in your life through that, regardless of your circumstances. God has chosen every single one of you. You know that your plan, like God has chosen you, your plan is to bring hope to this broken world. Like that's part of who God has created you to be. You, who you are, how God has created you, your personality is for a specific purpose, for His design to tell this broken world about Jesus. There's not a qualifying factor. There's not a performance factor. It's your birthright as a believer that God has a purpose for your life. We may screw up, and you're not required to be perfect. And only God has the authority to qualify or disqualify you. So get it out of your head that God can't use you because you're not capable, because you're not able, because you're not good enough, because you're not spiritual enough. Every single one of us are leaders. And as we walk out these doors today, every single one of us will rub shoulders with somebody, and we will have the opportunity to be all that God has created us to be, to lead those people towards you, whether they know Him or not. Whether the people you're talking to already know Jesus, help lead them closer to Jesus. Help encourage them. If they don't know Jesus, if they don't know that their sins can be completely forgiven, if they surrender their hearts to Jesus and acknowledge that He died for their sins and ask for forgiveness, tell them that. Tell them how you got to that point. God will use you as a leader. Leadership is complex, but it's also very simple. Sometimes you just got to take a step. Sometimes you just got to have that 1 second of courage to say in the grocery line, oh, hey, I heard it sounds like you're having a bad day. Like just something like a quick trigger, just that one moment. And all of a sudden you're living in the purpose that your Creator has given you. In a moment, we can choose that. Lead yourselves into leading others. Be obedient to God. Be obedient to His word. Surrender completely to Him. Surrender completely to Him, and then go after what God has created you for. What our Creator has created us for is much greater than anything I could try to come up on my own and try to pursue on my own.
For more information, including upcoming events, how to get plugged in, and details on how to give, visit our website at www.visitonechurch.com/Ripon. You can also find us on social media.